Here's a number that might surprise you. In one study, 87% of people described their deepest relationships using words like, can't live without, or need you to stay. We call that love. But the Buddha would gently ask, are you sure? Because love and dependency feel almost identical from the inside, yet they lead to completely opposite places. One opens your hands, the other tightens your grip until someone gets hurt. Today I want to show you 3 quiet signs that reveal which one you're actually living. Because seeing the difference clearly is where real love begins. The banks of the Ganges River. An evening breeze stirs the reeds, and the water catches the last orange light of the fading sun. On this day, the Buddha sat in the cool shade of a tree with a small gathering of his disciples. Somewhere in the distance, a bird called out. The only other sound was the steady murmur of the river, unhurried, unconcerned, simply moving. Among the disciples sat a young man. He was there in body, but his eyes were somewhere far away. Something lived between his brows, wordless, heavy, as though he were carrying a question he didn't yet know how to ask. Was he thinking of someone, or was he tangled up in someone? The Buddha watched him in silence, the way the river watched nothing, and moved on anyway. After some time, the young man reached down and picked up a small stone, turning it slowly in his fingers as if the answer might be hidden somewhere in its weight. He did not throw it. He did not set it down. He simply held it, the way we hold the ones we cannot let go of, not because they need us to, but because we have forgotten what our empty hand feels like. The river, of course, carried no stones. A heron stood at the water's edge nearby, still as carved wood, watching the current pass beneath its feet. It did not chase the river. It did not mourn the water that had already gone. The young man's knuckles, the Buddha noticed, had gone pale. Let's call the young man Ananda, though this is not the story of the famous disciple. This is the story of an ordinary young man who lived beside the Ganges, whose name history never kept. There was a woman he loved. They had grown up together, and somewhere along the way she had become someone he couldn't imagine living without. When she laughed, he could breathe again. When she was sad, his own chest ached. This, he believed, was love. Then one day she said something quiet and simple. I need a little time to myself. And his world came apart. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat. When he saw her speaking to someone else, a tightness would seize his chest and refuse to let go. Why wasn't she staying close? Why did it feel like she was pulling away? If he loved her this much, why did it hurt this much? He went to the Buddha looking for an answer. I love her, he said, but every time she moves away from me, I feel like I'm falling apart. Is love supposed to feel like this? The Buddha said nothing for a while. The river filled the silence between them. Then gently he asked, are you wishing for her happiness, or are you wishing for her to remain by your side? Ananda opened his mouth to answer and stopped. Aren't those the same thing? But now that the question hung in the air, something about them felt different, distinct, almost like 2 separate roads. The Buddha continued, as a mother would protect her only child with her own life, so let one cultivate a boundless heart toward all living beings. Whether standing, walking, sitting, or lying down, as long as one is awake, let this loving kindness be sustained. These words come from an ancient text called the Sutta Nipata, a collection of the Buddha's teachings. Within a poem about compassion, the nature of love rests quietly, waiting to be found. Ananda asked, what is this loving kindness you speak of? How is it different from what I feel for her? The Buddha pointed to the river. Does the river choose which land to nourish? No, Ananda said slowly. It just flows toward whatever is lower, wherever it can go. Yes, loving kindness is like that river. It doesn't reach out to grasp a particular person. It simply arises, naturally, and moves toward whatever is before it. That is the love the Sutta Nipata describes. Then what I feel for her, it is not the river, the Buddha said, his voice kind. It is water held inside a cup. When the cup is full, you feel safe. But the moment the water shifts, the moment it trembles, you are terrified it will spill. That fear is what is causing your suffering. Ananda sat still and looked at the river for a long time. A cup, I was trying to hold her, keep her, inside the shape of myself. I thought I loved her, he said quietly. Perhaps you did, the Buddha replied. But something else had mixed itself into that love. That is what matters now. Ananda watched a leaf fall from a branch upstream and land on the water's surface. The river did not pause for it, did not cradle it. It simply carried the leaf forward, neither holding nor refusing. He thought of all the evenings he had waited by the path she walked home, counting her steps, rehearsing her smile, measuring whether it was wide enough to mean she still loved him. That was not a river. That was a man standing at the bank, trying to stop the current with his hands. So what exactly sits between the loving kindness the Buddha described and what most of us call love? The Sutta Nipata puts it this way: as a mother would protect her only child with her own life, extend that same heart toward all living beings. The key phrase is all living beings, not just one cherished person, not just those who make us feel safe, but strangers too, even those who have hurt us, even the parts of the world we can't control. That open, unconditional warmth is what Buddhism calls love in its truest form. But when we say I love you in ordinary life, something else tends to slip into the feeling, quietly, without announcement. Stay close to me, need me, please don't leave. These look like wishes we're making for the other person. But look again, every one of them is actually a wish for ourselves, a wish to feel safe, to feel wanted, to feel whole. They are not about the other person at all. And here is where suffering takes root. The pain doesn't come from the other person moving away. It comes from a belief you've been holding, that this person should stay, that this is how it ought to be. Every time they move, that belief gets shaken, and every time it shakes, the pain returns. The source of the suffering isn't the other person. It's the fixed shape you've built inside yourself, the shape you've decided the relationship must take. This is what Buddhism calls attachment. But here, a word of caution. This is not an invitation to let go of everything. Trying to force yourself to let go is itself another form of grasping. What matters first, and most, is simply noticing, I am holding on to something. That recognition alone begins to soften the grip. Awareness, not effort, is the first step. There's something else worth sitting with. Most of us believe, I love them, and that's why it hurts. But is that really true? Love itself doesn't create suffering. What creates suffering is the dependency woven into the love, the part where your sense of safety is rooted in another person. When they move, your roots move with them. That lurching, unsteady feeling, that is dependency revealing itself. And consider this, the I that loves, the my love you feel so certain of, does it have a fixed, solid form? Buddhism suggests that what we call I is not a permanent thing. It's a shape that arises moment by moment from the web of conditions surrounding us. You are not someone who loves her. You are someone in whom love arises because of her. Without her, that particular version of you would not exist either, which means that clutching her close might, at its deepest level, be an attempt to hold yourself together. Love and dependency wear similar faces, but they face in opposite directions. Love faces outward, toward the other person. Dependency faces inward, toward yourself. A monk once described it this way: he could tell which one was operating by asking a single question. Whose comfort am I really arranging for right now? Not as a judgment, but as an honest look. The answer, when he sat with it quietly, was almost always the same. So how does this teaching reach into actual life? Your life, as it is right now. Imagine a partner you've been with for years. Lately they seem distant. They don't talk the way they used to. You're in the same room, but the warmth feels thinner. You want to shake them and ask, why have you changed? Where is the suffering coming from? From the fact that they've changed? Or from a quiet belief inside you that says, this person is supposed to stay close, supposed to keep talking to me the way they used to? People change, relationships change. Like the river, this cannot be stopped. The suffering isn't caused by the change itself, it's caused by the resistance to it. The part of you that says, not this, not yet, not like this. Or think about raising a child. The day your child no longer needs you the way they once did, that particular ache, I'm being left behind, I'm no longer needed. Is that love for your child? Or is it attachment to the feeling of being needed? The Sutta Nipata's loving kindness asks, are you wishing for your child's happiness? Or are you wishing for your child to stay within reach? If you could genuinely rejoice when they fly far, and find their own sky that might be the shape of loving kindness. But if the sight of them flying away brings grief, it's worth asking gently, what part of yourself were you hoping they'd hold in place? This isn't about judgment. It isn't about being a bad parent or a bad partner. It's about seeing clearly. Consider friendships. A friend who always reached out has gone quiet. You don't know why. You've sent message after message. The silence makes you anxious, almost frantic. Try shifting the angle for a moment. Are you thinking about your friend's well-being, what they might be going through, what they might need? Or are you thinking about the relationship as you knew it, trying to get it back, trying to restore the version that made you feel safe? When we are deep in dependency, we don't always realize it. We look at the other person, but what we're really looking at is the version of ourselves that felt okay when they were around. Their face becomes a window, and what we're gazing at through it is our own lost comfort. Loving kindness, as the Sutta Nipata describes it, looks directly at the other person, not through them. It asks, what do they feel? What do they need? The gaze is outward, genuinely outward, not circling back to land on yourself. And yet, love and dependency are rarely clean and separate. Most of the time, our feelings are a mixture of both. The point isn't to sort them into two perfect piles. The point is to become quietly, honestly aware of the mixture. A father sits at his daughter's wedding, watching her dance with someone he barely knows. His chest fills with something he cannot name, joy and ache together, like two hands pressing from opposite sides. He doesn't need to resolve that feeling before the song ends. So what might you try, starting today? Here is one small thing. Tonight, bring someone to mind. It can be someone you love deeply, or someone the relationship feels complicated with. Just hold their face gently in your thoughts. And then quietly, say this to yourself. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. This is where the Buddha's loving kindness meditation begins. The same practice rooted in the Sutta Nipata. No special posture required. No ritual. Just the image of that person and the sincere wish for their well-being. But as you sit with it, notice what happens inside you. Does warmth spread through your chest, or does something uncomfortable linger there? If there's discomfort, don't push it away. You don't need to fix it or feel ashamed of it. Simply notice, some part of me is still holding on. That noticing is enough. That's where it begins. The Buddha's disciples practiced this daily. They started with one person they cared for. Then they widened it to friends, to acquaintances, to strangers, eventually even to people who had hurt them. And in that gradual widening, something slowly shifted. The sharp line between myself and everyone else began, little by little, to soften. I won't promise this will take the pain away, but the way you see the other person may begin to change. Slowly, instead of seeing what they mean to me, you may begin to see who they actually are. That quiet shift is a step toward love that doesn't hurt. A monk I once read about described it this way. After months of practice, he found himself stopped on a crowded street, watching a tired old man struggle with a heavy bag, a complete stranger, and felt without thinking an ache in his own chest. He hadn't planned it. He hadn't tried. It simply arrived. That is what the widening does, over time. So perhaps begin there, not with the stranger on the street, but with whoever comes to mind tonight. One face, one quiet wish. And if it feels small or even a little hollow at first, that's all right. The monk with the heavy bag didn't start on a crowded street either. Think of someone you love, or someone you're finding it hard to love right now. Ask yourself honestly, what are you doing for them? And then ask the quieter question, is it for their joy or for your peace of mind? You don't have to answer quickly. You don't have to answer perfectly. Just sit with the question and let it ask itself again in its own time. A monk once swept the same courtyard path every morning for 30 years, and when asked why he was so devoted to the task, he paused and said quietly, I am still not sure whether I do it for the birds who walk here, or because I cannot bear to see leaves out of place. The path was clean either way, but he knew the difference mattered. And perhaps that is where the real practice begins, not in the sweeping, but in the willingness to keep asking. There are those who give endlessly and grow bitter, not because they gave too much, but because somewhere along the way the giving became a kind of hunger. The hand that reaches out in love and the hand that reaches out in need can look from the outside exactly the same. The line between love and attachment is one we explored from another angle in a previous teaching, what it truly means to love without clinging, and why letting go can be the deepest act of love. You thought it was love. Maybe it was also dependency. If that realization arrives, please don't turn it into a reason to be hard on yourself. Dependency is not weakness. It is what happens when someone matters to you enough to shake your whole world. It is a deep human longing for connection, finding the only form it knew how to take. But once you see it clearly, you can begin, just barely, just gently, to shift the question from "I want them to stay with me" to "I want them to be well." One small word changes, but sometimes one word is everything. The Sutta Nipata speaks of a loving kindness that flows like a river toward all things. But every river begins as a single point high on a mountain, one drop finding its way. You don't need to love all of humanity by morning. Start with the one person in front of you. Look at their face. Really look, not for what they give you, but for who they are. That is the quiet starting place. That is where love, rather than dependency, begins to grow. The Buddha said, as long as you are awake, sustain this loving kindness. As long as you are awake, which means right now, from this moment. That is soon enough. Not tomorrow when you feel ready. Not after you have forgiven everything and healed completely. Right now, with the grief still sitting in your chest like a stone. With the phone you almost picked up, still on the table beside you. Right now with the name you haven't said aloud yet, still caught somewhere between your throat and your heart. That is not a flaw in your practice. That is your practice. Whose face came to mind while you were listening today? One story a day. In a week, your words will change. In a month, your eyes will change. In a year, the same world will look completely different.